My definition of hip hop is the ability to create something out of nothing, and to make what appears to be normal a frantic necessity. Universal Hip Hop Museum is the single most important project in hip hop, period. It is a way for us as artists and innovators and just people who are in the culture to secure the legacy of hip hop.
This is our 5th Cypher. We did 4 with the help of Microsoft. We went to Los Angeles, we went to Detroit, Atlanta, and New York. And we invited the same kind of group of people, students, educators, executives, architects, designers, and we took a lot of feedback from a lot of different people.
The way that we've gotten to today, to this point, I should say, is that we've been talking with others and collecting input about some of the designs, and what we're doing by creating these ciphers is ultimately creating what I call advocates for the project, so that when you see this project, you know that you had an opportunity to provide some input. And for the UHHM folks, it's no surprise when the museum is out there and people are saying, where did that come from?
I like the fact that they brought so many people in the Cypher, the producers, the engineers, the architects, the practitioners themselves, so that everybody's voice, is in the mix. And so by the time the museum is all done, I think everybody's voice is somehow going to be captured.
Anyone seen that new CBS show called what is it, God's Friend or something like that? It's on CBS. And God is like sending this guy on a mission to save all these people. Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the story of the museum. It's like I'm being driven by this magical force that is saying, you are the guy that needs to stay focused on this project, because there's been other people that tried to do it and it just hasn't worked. So I've been working on this project for 365 days a year, almost every day. Even in my sleep, I dream about this project.
Universal Hip Hop Museum is such a needed entity, and I'm quite sure, when you're asking people what's so great about it, it's needed for a lot of different reasons. It's important to put your stamp in the ground and say, this is who we are, which is what hip-hop did, and then to say, this is what we did. I found in history that if you don't do that, then somebody comes around and takes claim, and then they tell your story, and you don't even realize, I don't even know what that's about.
I don't do a lot of applause. I do a lot of clapping. I just don't do it. But one of the few times I've applauded today is when someone said it's the most important project that could happen in hip-hop culture. And it is, because it's the one that says this is worthy of note.
One truth I believe is that hip-hop is an empowering way to think and act that breaks down the differences between humanity and represents a productive way to interact with your environment. Because hip-hop is so powerful, hip-hoppers must guide and make sure this energy is encouraged to evolve while learning the lessons of the past. The Universal Hip Hop Museum represents hip-hop's closest opportunity to set up its own institution to preserve, celebrate, and share its cultural knowledge. I've been collecting hip-hop artifacts since I was in the 8th grade. What I have come to realize is that the greatest thing about having a collection is sharing it.
I got some stuff. I can't wait. I got some really great archive stuff from the Fever. I got the turntables, I got the mixes that Flash played on, and Starsky and DJ Hollywood and Pete DJ Jones. So I can't wait. I've been saving it for something. So finally there's some place, like they said, to keep the history going on forever. When we're all gone, at least somebody 10, 20, 30 years from now will say, wow, that's that place where everybody got started at.
Paradise couldn't be here today. He's got eye surgery. I spoke with him last night, and I asked him what he'd want to say. Like, he wanted to say a lot, but I asked him just for a quote. And so his quote to me was, "The museum is not where hip-hop goes to die. The Universal Hip Hop Museum is where hip-hop goes to live. It's a museum, not a mausoleum."
Because it's important for people to see how many people actually put a thumbprint on this culture. You know, not just the creative side, but the business side, the people who have written about it, published it, did films about it. I mean, hip-hop has grown to be more than just one entity. And the person that I want to bring up now is an advisory board member. She was with me when I had my label at MCA, Strong City. Her name is Deidre Tate. Come on, Deidre.
Hi, my name is Deidre Nicole Tate, and I am a 30-plus year veteran of the music industry. I started out in 1984 working at MTV, and I quickly went into the music industry.
Thank you very much. I'm like everybody else, was not expecting to speak, but I absolutely had the pleasure of promoting Rocky's entire label, Strong City, when I was at Uni Records. That was the beginning of my career in the music industry. I ended up, we signed a one-act deal with Eric B. and Rakim for their Follow the Leader album, also on Uni. So that was a unique experience, and from there I went to MCA, where Rich Nice was one of my artists on Motown Records. I was there for 8 years. Ran Michael Bivins' whole label, had BBD, another band Creation, who kind of changed the game for rap with their singing and rapping. So that was like a very early stage of that form. And then I went on to run Queen Latifah's company for 13 years, which is how I ended up living in Jersey.
Pretty much I had a full continuous journey, and I ended up leaving Motown when Queen Latifah was signed there, and she asked me if I would come be the president and general manager of Flavor Unit Entertainment. But when Rocky called me up, I had to come be a part of this, because not only is it special, it's actually just part of my DNA. I grew up in the Bronx, 875 Morrison Avenue. I was definitely up in the fever when I was underage.
My name is Michael Holman. I'm a hip-hop pioneer, journalist, filmmaker, television producer, choreographer, etc.
There's always been this debate, like, why was it created in New York? Why? It could have happened in Chicago, it could have happened in LA, in big ways. But it comes back to this idea of New York being this melting pot with a lot of different people from a lot of different places.
I was one of those cats from downtown New York, like Fat Five Freddy and Charlie Ahern, who was really fascinated by what was going on uptown. And so, because there were so few people downtown who understood and knew about this culture, and so few people outside of the Bronx who knew about this culture, that it was open season.
And that, as an outsider, you don't see that really in any other city but New York. We're block to block. You've got in the Bronx, you've got the Italians up in a certain part of the Bronx, with like Puerto Ricans next to them, with like Jamaicans, with black people from the South, with Jews and Irish, with everybody contributing in an interesting way. That I think Bambaataa really always touched on this, is that hip-hop is a universal language with a lot of people contributing to it.
In the beginning, I started to write about hip-hop. I did the first interview of DJ Africa Bambaataa for the East Village Eye. It came out in January 1982. It was the first time that the term hip-hop had ever been published in a publication. First time it had ever been used in print. All
right, so now you're starting to see music as opposed to it being a sonic experience.
What up, what up, what up? My name is DJ Clientele, the world-class wrecking crew in the house, man. Started out with a group. Guys, you might have heard of them, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, DJ Yella, Grandmaster Lonzo.
And I love the people, I love the culture, I love everything about it. And it reminds me a little bit of home to LA. Just to give you a little history about World Class Wrecking Crew. We started out as a DJ crew.
I always tell people they have to distinguish between the rap industry and hip-hop culture. the rap music industry is the music you hear on the radio. It's, you know, some of the other stuff that goes on the antics on social media. But hip-hop culture is something that has expanded for the last 40-plus years, and it's something that is more than just the music.
One of the design directors from Nike came out, and then we explored taking lyricism and turning it again into a different type of a rap. So now, instead of this rap being something that you hear or something that you see, you can now rap yourself in a rap.
People call me Pop Master Fable, part of the Rocksteady crew, Universal Zulu Nation.
I came up with a concept called the MAZE concept, M-A-Z-E, which stands for Movement Activate Zoetic Energy. And it's really based on slicing through your performance space, cutting through space, and exploring your performance space in different ways, being multi-directional.
My first tour was to, we did the Berlin and Zurich Jazz Festival.
I started doing what we called Electric Boogie here in New York, which was a bastardized version of Electric Boogaloos, who are the creators of poppin'.
My point is that when we started traveling, really the universal language among the DJ, the MC, etc., for the most part was the dancer. Because that's, you know, we're not trying to talk a certain type, our bodies are talking, right? So it's like a so-called graffiti letter come to life, right? Popped off the wall, boom, it just starts getting busy.
But we're thinking, you know, can the elements, the architectural elements, start to mimic the fluidity and the flow of graffiti? One of the other things that I'm interested in doing when we start to get into the design of some of these elements is actually bringing writers on and teaching them some design skills, 3D modeling, as we've done in the past, so they can take part in doing.
Went all over the world, like Soul Sonic Force, we took hip hop all over the world. And we watched this thing grow and grow. When we started doing parties, we was actually doing parties for White Castle money. You know what I'm saying? Now it's $1 billion industry. You know, the other day, my 3-year-old granddaughter is watching a video of my son, and the video came on, Planet Rock video came on. And she just jumped, that's Granddad, that's Granddad. And she started chasing me around the house, Granddad, gotta do a song with you, gotta do a song with you. And that feeling was crazy. So to know that this museum is gonna be here like 10, 15 years from now, she could go there and look at myself, because they just changed this culture so much that this needs to be. You know what I'm saying? People need to see what it was and what it became. Because 30, 40 years from now, Soul Sonic Force will be 3 white guys. So this needs to be.
Hi, this is Sal Abatello, Disco Fever, Boogie Down Bronx.
I've been blessed to be one of the pioneers in the forefront. I grew up in the Bronx, went to All Hallows High School, and my family had nightclubs in the Bronx. When we decided to open up the Disco Fever, which was strictly a disco club in 1976, there was a young man who was DJing at the end of the night when the main DJ would leave.
His name was Sweet G, and he started rhyming and doing nursery rhymes to the crowd, and I was noticing how the crowd, you know, was interacting with him and making the whole place seem as one person. And I was like, wow, this is some powerful music to make all strangers, 100, 200, 300 people, all be doing the same thing. It was like the Pied Piper.
And every time I went there, because I was working uptown at one of our other clubs, I would come down about 4 in the morning, because in the Bronx, you party from 4 to 7 in the morning, and nobody says nothing. That's how it was in the old days.
So I made friends with him. I said, yo, where could I go see this music? Is this a new art form in the streets? He said, yeah. So I said, who's the best one to find? He said, Grandmaster Flash. So I went to the park. We went to the park. I met Grandmaster Flash. I convinced Flash to come to the club and do a night there. And he was reluctant at first, especially because I was white. He's like, what's this white guy bringing me up to the South Bronx? What you know about the South Bronx? I said, but I think this is something to bring it indoors. I think you'll get discovered. I think this will, you know, highlight you and give you an opportunity to be exposed to not just the park, but to everybody. First night we go in, 700 people show up. And it was amazing. And from that day on, it was Hip Hop Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Hi, my name is Mr. Wade from the New York City Breakers.
I'm in the Bronx. I got enough to bargain for this sheepskin. I did not think it was even possible. Walked into the building, Faber was there, we were always auditioning for this situation. And this is true to life. I saw Mr. Wiggles dancing. I was Dr. Electric. Mr. Wiggles was kind of doing this wiggle thing. It was real cool, his legs and everything, all this movement. And I said, I need to discover something now. And then I took that electric stuff and I put it into movement and moved my whole body around. Michael Holman saw that, took me out into the hall and said, we would like to have you join the New York City Breakers. In that instance, I became a New York City Breaker and then went on to become internationally known. So thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You hear a lot of conversations about the culture and hip hop, but you're hearing it through one or two lenses. This gives our fans and gives the public the opportunity to get a holistic view of what this museum will mean to us in the future.
I came today thinking that I had all these different ideas and concepts about what could be happening with the museum, different ways that they can approach certain things, different ways that they can build certain things. And then I sat and listened to everybody else and I saw what was already happening, and it stimulated so many more ideas after that. I think that, I thought that the presentation #1 was awesome too, and it's necessary. You know, it's necessary for people to understand that, you know, we as a people, right, particularly, and I'm going to address it as, you know, black people, we don't really honor our history like that, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's really nice that we're going to have a place that that young rappers can come and see the old guys, and the old guys can interact with the young guys, and so on and so forth. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he's like, oh, this mumble rap is terrible, this mumble rap, mumble rap, mumble rap. I said, let me tell you something. I said, when the Universal Hip Hop Museum actually happens, these mumble rappers will be inducted into the museum. Because at that time, their fans, who are now 16 and 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, their demographic will be in their 40s. So the mumble rappers are the Jay-Z's of our time, of their time. You know, there'll be a Jay-Z. I said, you're missing my point. I didn't say that the mumble guy is Jay-Z. I said, for that time period, for the new demographic, this is their Jay-Z, this is their Tupac. You know, and they're going to be included in the museum too at the end of the day.
I love the idea that this is going to evolve. I think, you know, you set a standard here in New York and then have it evolve from there. I would love to see a West Coast version of the Hip Hop Museum. I would love to see a Chicago version, because one of the questions I was going to pose was, what happens to all the other offshoot genres from within hip hop? We're obviously going to cover this debate, the core elements here, but what about the Cholo community in the West Coast? What about, you know, what NWA and everybody in the West contributed? Do they get their own exhibition? Do they get a small, you know, so this is pretty awesome. This is way overdue, and I'm glad to see it pan out.
Just being in the Bronx and knowing that that's going to be the place where we have the museum anchored is something that's really important, because I know that hip hop since its inception has popped up all over the country and now is global, but the real birthplace is the Bronx, and I can't see any other place or fathom anyone else trying to do a museum anywhere else before there is a landmark fixture in the Bronx. And the Bronx Point location is going to be ideal. It's been so well thought out. It's going to include community and it's going to beautify that whole area. So I think that, like, it's a 360-degree concept that's going to benefit not only the community of the Bronx, but hip hop and us telling people's stories and preserving our culture.